name is East Dockery, and I'm your host of WNAA Spotlights. And today with me, I have Mychael Gabriel, a contemporary pop artist, singer, songwriter, musician, you name it, all the way from Minnesota. How are you doing today, Mychael?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I'm great. So can you tell me a
Great.
little about how you got started within the music industry?
Yeah, it's a interesting story, and it starts before I was even born. Actually, my mom, she grew up in Oakland with Sheila, actually Sheila E, and they grew up together. They got their first apartment in LA together. She was her lyricist for a long time and road manager. Meanwhile, my father worked with Prince, and my parents met during the Purple Rain tour. And so I'm kind of a product of that era a little bit. And our family stayed connected ever since with Sheila. And Sheila is actually my godmother. So I got my start early on. My parents were super supportive of just me and the music and my passion for music, really. So I started playing guitar when I was probably about 5 years old or so. And they just continued to help cultivate that interest. We were the type of family that had like a drum set in the living room, you know what I mean? And they were just always very supportive of my passion for music.
So do you ever feel any pressure to live up to being that you come from such a legendary family? Do you ever feel any pressure?
You know what? That's an interesting question because just growing up around it kind of desensitizes you to what it is. So it all just kind of seems normal. All these things are happening around you, and it all just kind of seems normal. And it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I realized that this isn't actually so normal. You know, you know what I mean?
So being that you got the chance to work with legendary artists such as your godmother and even George Clinton and Earth, Wind, and Fire, can you tell me about one of your most memorable performances or favorite collabs?
I mean, honestly, if I were to name my favorite collab, it would be every time I get to work with my godmother, honestly. She's legendary, of course, but also she has a knack for bringing out the best in the people that she's around. I always say I went to the school of Sheila E., and so every time I get to collab with her, it's my favorite time because anytime we're together, it just feels like magic in the air. You know what I mean?
So what sort of advice has she given you, being that you get to work with her all the time? What are some things that you have learned from her?
One of the most important things I've learned from her actually is what notes not to play. Because there's so many things you can do. In music, the realm of possibilities are endless. But sometimes letting something breathe, taking a moment to let it be still, is just as important.
So I also read that you are inspired by like the Minneapolis sound, and a lot of artists have came out of there, such as of course Prince and Morris Day and Mint Condition. So from that city, who are some of your strongest influences aside from the names that you have mentioned?
Well, that's just the thing. I mean, Prince is probably the strongest influence, but it's not only the Minneapolis sound, I would say, are some of my driving influences. My parents were great at giving me exposure to all types of music, from the Beatles to the Rolling Stones to Queen to Stevie Wonder, and so it's a mixture of so many different influences, and I like so many different styles of music, from of course, the Minneapolis sound, and to jazz, to classical, to R&B, to hip-hop, to rock. So the influences kind of stem from all over. But I would say another prominent influence that inspired me to really want to get into playing guitar would probably be B.B. King. And his style of playing, it was almost like, it's not like, blues isn't like, hard rock, or it wasn't so many, it goes back to what notes not to play, where he was speaking through his instrument as opposed to, playing as many notes as he could really fast or something like that. Every note had a meaning, and he could stay on the same note just forever, and it would sound great. It was like magic. So I would say early on, B.B. King is probably a really strong influence. I mean, in conjunction with the Minneapolis sound. I mean, for me, the Minneapolis sound was Prince. And growing up, it was always playing in the house. But another influence of mine would probably be the late, great B.B. King.
So you also mentioned that you listen to a bunch of different styles of music, and you do list yourself as a contemporary pop artist, correct?
Yeah, it's a mix between Fergie and Jesus is what I think.
So, do you try to keep up with the trends of today or try to incorporate those elements that you are so inspired by within your music?
It's always different. I never, when I go into the studio to work on something, it's not like I have the intention of like, okay, I'm going to write a song like this. Normally, I have music just playing in my head all the time, and it's all just all sorts of different genres and all sorts of different ideas. And so when I have a second to go into the studio and lay something down, it could be, one song could be like in a, contemporary pop sort of genre, and another one could be, something entirely different. It could be more like an R&B vibe, or it could be just something with an acoustic guitar or something like that. So it's always different, but you can't help but be inspired by other artists that you hear, whether it be past or present. So it's a mixture, I think.
So, what advice would you give to any artists who are trying to find their own sound?
Just keep experimenting and record yourself all the time. It's hard to be. It's hard to judge your own music a lot of times, and I feel like being able to record it and listen to it back is probably a really, really good starting point to finding your sound. Just record as much as you can, and there's going to be things that you're listen to a few years back, a few years later on, and go, wow, what was I thinking there? But it's a really, really great tool to be able to kind of look at your stuff in the mirror and analyze it and make it better, and give you an opportunity to go back to the drawing board if need be, or sometimes there'll be some gems in there that had you not recorded, you would have missed it.
So, can you touch base on any projects that you have upcoming or currently working on right now?
I'm working on my project, of course. There's always something in the works with that. I, just like the advice I just gave, I'm always recording something. And so I'm going to be releasing a single called Ghost in the Midnight coming up at the end of July. And it's going to be the first song that I've put out in a while, but I'm really, really excited about that.
Can you tell me a little bit about like what that song is going to be about?
That song is just like a fun summer song, and it's kind of like a relationship song on the surface. But for me, the lyrical content of the song has to do with capturing that feeling of nostalgia. Is like your favorite dance song, Saturday morning cartoons, you playing a Sega Genesis, eating a bowl of Lucky Charms sort of thing. So like there's kind of like two different meanings to the song. On the surface it's just a fun summer sort of relationship song, but there's a lyric in the chorus that goes, it says something about, you taking me back and reminding me of my favorite things, and I could do this all night sort of thing.
So, do you like to tell like stories within the songs that you write?
Right. It's kind of like the music element, the lyric element of the song. You're almost kind of uncovering, what the song is trying to tell you. Almost. You're like an artist, and the song is like your block of granite, and you're kind of chiseling away at the song, trying to uncover the sculpture underneath. Not meaning to get too artsy fartsy with it or anything.
Oh no, you're fine.
But yeah, no, it's like. That's how the lyrics are as well, So most of the time when I'm writing the lyric or whatever, I'm just kind of mumbling into the microphone. And I'm like, I hear this lyric, and I'm like, oh, what if I went in this direction? And that's how a lot of the songs that I write or that I collab with other people. That's how I make forward progress with them.
So my last question for you is, where do you see yourself in your career in about, let's say, 5 years?
Continuing to write, continuing to tour, continuing to share my music with the world, hopefully, or anybody who will listen.
Thank you so much, Mychael. It was a pleasure having you on. Once again, my name is East Dockery, and this was your WNAA Spotlight. Thank you guys so much for listening. And now, here's an exclusive preview of Mychael's new single, Ghost in the Midnight.